So this is the left-hand side of the car. It's in a similar state to what the right-hand side looked like. This area here is a little bit worse, I think. There weren't quite so many holes visible until I started picking away at the paintwork. I'm not sure about the inner sill there, but this outer sill and the boxing panel looks a little bit better. There were definitely some more holes along the centre there. Here, not sure about that. I really want to see what is behind this panel. At the top here, this was much better on the other side. I didn't have to replace any of the top of this hinge pillar here. Yeah, the fact that that rust is bubbling through the paint isn't a good sign. Down here is similar. This covering panel is a really bad place, it seems, for Morris Minors to rust through. I think water gets in the hinges and just gathers there. So, first thing I needed to do was to take the front suspension off. I had real trouble with this on the other side because the spring is in tension at the moment because there's no weight on the car, so it's pushing the suspension arm down to its full length, which is not ideal. So it's basically holding all those bolts in. So what I'm trying to do here is wrap a ratchet strap around the lower wishbone and ratchet that up to pull the spring taut, which would reduce the tension on the top trunnion and that pivot there, so I can knock it out. Now ideally the car will be on the ground. You could just lower it down and let gravity put tension on this spring, undo those bolts and then jack it up again. At this point I'd given up on using the ratchet strap and I decided to use a bit of box steel under the wishbone and then put weight on this side of the car and then see if I could get enough weight on just to get a little bit of tension on that spring. Sod's Law didn't catch the moment that it actually came undone there. But you can see here, basically just pop that pivot open. Then it's a matter of removing the damping arm from the inside of the engine bay. I also did a final bit of measuring while I can. So this is the finished side of the car. I'm removing this support bracket from across the base of the doors. It's not doing any good over here now that the sills have been repaired, so I might as well reuse this bit of steel and weld it in over the base of the doors on the other side while I do those sills. Usually you can find out where the spot welds are by giving the area a bit of a sand, and there's a little kind of indentation where the original spot welds are, and you can find those and drill them out. This area here is so rusty that it's almost impossible to see where they are, so I'm going to have to do a lot of guesswork here. Just drill, hoping I get near, and as I start removing the metal, hopefully it'll become more obvious where those spot welds are. Okay, so this is much worse than I was hoping for. There definitely is a lot more rust all the way up this than the other side. The other side, it was mostly down at the bottom. I could do some sanding and be happy with it, I think. This is much worse. I think I'm going to have to replace this whole hinge pillar, which I've been avoiding because of those door hinge bolt holes. I really didn't want to mess with those positions, risk having the door not fit right. So I had an idea to attempt to mitigate that. I have no idea if this is a really stupid thing to do, but it's something that I think would make me more comfortable with removing this whole door hinge pillar, the A pillar here. So the plan is I'm going to bolt a bit of scrap steel on here. I'm going to weld it to the support frames that I've got, just so I can hold this position in space when the pillar is removed. I know, provided I don't mess this up, that I can position the new pillar, make sure it bolts into these holes, and everything should theoretically go back together. The bottom, I'll probably just make some measurements, but this one is kind of just a nice single floating point that will exist that I can reference everything from. Now, I know this is hideous. It doesn't need to be pretty. It doesn't need to last long, just as long as it's vaguely solid. I also took some measurements just in case. So one of the really annoying things about working on this corner of the car is this lip here. I think from the factory was hammered down or bent over like this. And this makes repairing this panel a bit of a pain because you can't as easily drill out the spot welds along this edge. So I'm trying to bend it back to in plane with the panel. It's not easy because it's double layers and you can't get a good swing in it with a hammer. It's also had an old repair at the bottom here, and I'm not sure how bad that is, but it's welded down this panel at a certain point. So I'm trying my best with various tools here. So I actually want to replace the top panel of this, the panel nearest the outside of the car, because it's very rusty where that A pillar is. So if I can drill out some welds and make my life easier bending only a single layer of metal, I will do. This is where I decided that I'm definitely going to remove this bottom corner. So there's no point in trying to bend this side back if I'm just going to cut it out. Thought I'd show you a bit of a closer look at this repair. You can see what's typical with these cars. Someone's just put a plate over the top of a rusty spot, not cut out any of the old rust. So behind it is just this paper thin mess of trapped rust. You've just got to peel back the layers and hope there's not too many sins behind them. Here I'm getting ready to drill out some of the spot welds that go through into the, I think they're kidney panels on the inside. and that's a relief. I can at least appreciate why people just weld in a new patch over old rust. And this is what the replacement panel will look like, with a lot of more work to get it to fit properly. I think that's a good point to end this episode, so see you next time. Cheers.